really? People aren't good. That's not how this works. Things that you do are good or bad, but people are just people.
Talk a lot.
When they're grieving.
Yeah, and you listen a lot. I don't know much, but I know people, and I know things that aren't people. There's a lot more, apparently, and
You seem to pick up on the stuff that's not said.
You have to.
They're not yet removed from the cross, whether it be by luck or superstition. There is the white snow dappled, multicolored coat of mollywog tea.
feel that you have to be free so that you can finally pay your debt.
This is me paying my debt.
No, this is you hiding from your debt. You're a man who is afraid of what you owe. I understand. That's okay. This is not your debt. Your debt lies elsewhere. I know these things.
Okay, wow. I have a heck of a cowlick, don't I? That's just amazing. Look at that thing. Morning, Cameron. Morning, Lady Temporary. Morning, Wordwin. Thank you so much for the follow, the fanfictioneer guy. Sleepy Oregonian, yeah. Fanfictioneer guy, you can grab a free copy of my first Underrealm novel at the link that I just dropped in chat. It is the book Nightblade. It is the full book, not a sample, not the first chapter. It is, I have to warn you, the drug dealer model. I give you the first one for free because I know you're going to want to come back and buy more. But you're going to enjoy yourself very much. So, you know, do it anyway and have a good time. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. That is usually the case. People working. Sorry to hear that, Bodegazilla. Although, you know. Always gotta... Excuse me. There's always the next thing, right? Word win. Hey, nice fanfiction here. Hey, well done, Cameron. New baby, Bodegazilla. Did Megan and I know about the new baby? That's amazing. Mini Bode 2. Minizilla. That's amazing, Bodegazilla. Congratulations. Oh, that's awesome, Lady Temeraire. Happy for your new keyboard. A good keyboard is so good. That's awesome, Lady Temeraire. Wow, that's a good keyboard, Fanfictioner. Mm-mm-mm. Hey, what's up, Kelly writes? How much is 55 millimeters? 55 millimeters. Oh, that's about 55 millimeters, about 2 inches. All right. Jesus. Wow, Callie writes, that's a hell of a dream. I really have to get in the booth, get the day started. But I'm currently a little bit obsessed. There's just something so intimate about crafting a moment specifically designed to emotionally destroy one of your players in particular. Makes me feel very, you know. Okay. Wow, spam bot. Ooh. All right. You got me. I've been bamboozled. I've been enticed. Wow. I so I am going to get in the booth, but there is for D&D this week. There is going to be a meeting that could easily turn into a confrontation. And like it is the beginning of the final arc of one of the characters' whole story. It's his whole thing. We're moving towards the end of the campaign that we've been playing for years now. And so it's time to actually give everyone's story an ending. And so there is going to be a meeting in this week's game that could very well turn into a confrontation. And I am working so hard to just grab this player by the emotions and squeeze. And it's I think it's going to be very good. I think everybody's going to enjoy themselves a lot. But I'm also literally being very careful with the timing of the game and what's going to happen in the game. And if if the game goes too late, basically the real heavy stuff isn't going to happen until we've got, unless I know that we literally have enough time after the game for aftercare, because the table's going to need it. Oh, what was I looking up? Who knows? Audio. All right. Booth time for real. All right. Hello. Oh, right. Headphones. Check, check, check. How much coffee do I have? Enough to start. Okay. Check, check, check. Okay, Yerrin, recording day 8, starting as always with 30 seconds of silence, beginning now. Shoot, beginning now. All right. Chapter 11. Yerrin, Chapter 11. With their plan formed, they quickly finished their food and set off into the streets. Lauren took Annis and Jem to a marketplace near the inn. They had lodged in one of the city's finer districts, which must have been a deliberate choice of whiles. The smuggler enjoyed a good bed and good wine. Now they passed between stores with fine luxury crafts displayed in the windows, which were often paned with glass and framed by ornamented wrought iron. Annis took the lead at once and led them towards the first shop, a tailor. Just before they reached the door, Lauren paused and turned to her. "Barter hard for everything we purchase," she said. "And if the price is too high, let us take our business elsewhere. We are only here for information, and it looks like the goods here are expensive." Annis tilted her head. "We will have to spend some coin, Lauren. We have plenty of it now, and a merchant's tongue never wags so freely as when their purse is being filled." "We do have coin, but that was not the case a few days ago, and I did not enjoy it," said Lauren. "Our gold may have to last us a long while. I do not have an endless supply of magestones to sell, after all." Annis arched an eyebrow at her. "Do you think I would waste our funds? I am a Yerrin, Lauren. I can buy information without emptying our purse. My mother taught me that much, at least." "Oh, let her handle it, Lauren," said Jem. "I should so love a new suit of clothes." Lauren frowned. "You will only get them filthy. Indeed, I think you know some spell to coat your garments with grime, for it seems to happen instantly." Jem scowled. Annis giggled at them both. "Trust me, Lauren," she said. "This is why you have brought me along, after all." Lauren sighed. "Very well. Of course I trust you, and I brought you because you are my friend, not just because you are useful." Annis smiled and led the way into the shop. Inside, they found the tailor to be a man both portly and incredibly short, a finger shorter even than Annis. At first, he looked at... Yeah, fanfictioneer. Thank you very much. That's really nice. I built a little sound booth in my closet, so it's not much, but it's something. Listen, I may have short-term memory loss, but at least I don't have short-term memory loss. At first he looked at them with disdain. Though they had just bathed, their clothes... That's not quite the right read. At first he looked at them with disdain. Though they had just bathed, their clothes were still worn from long leagues on the road, and were modest besides. But when Annis flashed a pair of gold weights in her palm, his demeanor changed at once. What does this guy sound like? He's a one-scener, so he could just be something real over the top and ridiculous.
Oh yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Of course it would be my pleasure to serve you,
he said, beaming a smile.
Do you want new clothes for further travel, or something a bit more elegant for functions within the city?
Annis eyed the fine gowns displayed on mannequins along the walls. But after a moment she turned from them with a quiet sigh. Indeed, we mean to ride from the city soon, she said. Though it pains me to refuse such dresses as yours. Such fine craftsmanship is rare to see, though I should have expected it from an establishment as well kept as this. The merchant's smile grew still wider, and he bowed.
You learned your manners too well, for they compel you to be overly generous. Mine is a humble shop. But let me see what insufficient garb I can clad you in. My only hope is that you remember this mean little place with some fondness.
Shelves of fine cloth ran along the shop's back walls, and there were more standing shelves in the center. He led them along the rows, bouncing on the balls of his feet and pointing out this or that weave and color, inviting them to feel the textures. Lauren was glad she had just bathed, or she would have feared to smudge dirt all over the bolts of fine fabric. Did I say smudge dirt? Yep, I said smudge dirt. Lauren was glad she has... Don't do this to me, voice! Lauren was glad she had just bathed, or she would have feared to smudge dirt all over the bolts of fine fabric. Annis appraised everything in the shop with an expert eye. Lauren remembered how they met almost a year ago, when she had snuck into a Yerrin caravan just south of the Birchwood. The wagons had been filled with fabrics, for the Yerrin's chief trade was textiles, at least on the surface. Lauren did not know much about clothing, but she guessed that the Yerrins trafficked in only the best, which must have been why Annis's interest alighted only on the shop's most precious samples. At last Annis selected a few different materials. Once she had, the tailor took them back to the mannequins. He offered suggestions of various cuts, pointing to some riding dresses for her and a suit of clothes for Jem. The clothes were far too large for the boy, but the tailor promised he could deliver the same look on Jem's slighter frame.
And for you,
he said, turning to Lauren,
a riding dress as well, mayhap, or a shirt and trousers.
Lauren balked. Me?
I do not require anything new, she said. Oh, yes, you do, said Annis. She pursed her lips, tapping them with a finger. But something quite different for her, I think. Not a dress, certainly, but not a suit like Jem's either. Here. She went to the back corner of the shop. There stood a man... Now, once upon a time, fanfictioneer, I was a voice actor for a while, but sort of fell out of it, and it's such... It is... Acting in general, and voice acting, from my experience, is just absolutely brutal, and not an industry that I enjoy very much. You are working so hard to get picked. That's your main job, is just get picked. There stood a mannequin in fine clothes that yet seemed entirely useful, somewhere between a peasant's garb, meant for hard work on a hot day, and a suit that a noble might wear. Lauren could see at once that the tunic and pants would be easy to move in, and yet they had an elegant sort of flair. There was also a vest with many stylish pockets that buttoned shut. The tailor turned to Lauren with wide eyes, and a little smile played at his lips. "Ah, I see it at once," he said. "Yes, of course. Perfect. And the material?" Annis took him back to the shelves. She must have anticipated this, for she immediately pointed out a few bolts of cloth that were all black or dark gray. But then she went to the next shelf over and pointed at a bolt of muted green velvet. Excuse me. You get all the mouth noise when I'm in here. "Trim it in this," she said, "for the eyes." Of course, said the merchant. To Lauren's surprise, he was very nearly bouncing in anticipation. "And might I suggest this for the inside of the vest? You will see only a flash of it when she moves, of course, but that will make all the difference." He put his hand on a bolt of satin, green as well, but closer in color to the sea. Annis gave a sharp clap, her eyes shining. "Sky above, it is perfect. May up on the inside of the collar as well." The tailor snapped his fingers. "Just so. It is the final piece to make it perfect." Ooh, big pop there. Big pop. "Just so. It is the final piece to make it perfect. You have a fine judgment for this, my lady. I am further humbled by your presence in my modest place of business." "Modest you may be, but not deservedly so," said Annis. From the pouch at her waist she pulled 4 gold weights. These she placed in the tailor's hand, and then she deliberately pulled forth another and added it to the pile. "I hope we can retrieve the clothing tomorrow?" "I will delay some other orders to ensure it," said the tailor. "But your offer is far too generous." Yet Lauren noticed his fingers closed over the gold at once. "Not at all," said Annis. "For the quality I see here, I think I make a more than shrewd bargain." The tailor bowed lower than ever before and drew them to the back of the shop to take their measurements. Annis went first, holding out her arms while he pulled out a ribbon and ran it along her limbs. She smiled as he did it, but then her brow furrowed for a moment. "I do so hope the road is safe to the west," she said. "What a shame it would be for our new garments to be endangered by bandits." The tailor frowned at that. "Things are uncertain in these days, to be sure." Annis nodded. "Still, I am certain that King Wojan will maintain order." That drew a snort from the tailor. But he quickly suppressed it, and Lauren saw him look askance at Annis. He tried to pass it off by coughing quiet.
He tried to pass it off by coughing quietly. "It sounds so strange to say." Annis shook her head. "King Wojin. My heart breaks for King Jun. I saw him once, you know. He was a good man."
"He was that,"
said the tailor fervently.
"It was my great pleasure to make clothing for many members of the royal family, though never King Jun himself, of course. I was invited to the palace more than once, and though I never had the honor of meeting his grace, I saw him on occasion. He was a regal man, and so handsome. Not like... Well, I mean to say that we will not see his like again for a long time."
"I can only imagine your sorrow at his passing," said Annis.
"Yet at least his kinsman sits the throne." "That is a blessing, I suppose,"
the tailor grumbled.
"And Wojin has what he wants in the end. That is all for you, dear. Young master, if you would."
Jem stepped into Annis's place, his chest puffing out at the title of young master. Annis drew aside, her eyes widening.
"Do you mean to say that Wojin desired the throne already?"
she said. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. It was the voice of a girl sharing some bit of scandalous gossip with a close friend. The tailor responded in kind, looking over his shoulder at her and giving a wink.
"That is the most ill-kept secret in Dorsey, and may up all the 9 kingdoms. Wojin was the youngest brother of King Jun's mother, Min, of course."
"Of course," said Annis, nodding as though everyone knew it. Lauren hid a smile.
"Well, everyone in Dorsey knows Wojin resented the throne passing to his nephew when Min passed away. Later, when King Jun's son, Senlin, was born, they say Wojin flew into a rage that lasted for days."
The tailor sighed and shook his head.
"Still, that was a long time ago, long before King Jun met his end, at the hands of agents of the High King, or so they say."
He snorted again, louder this time, and rolled his eyes. Annis's eyes grew still... That sounds like I just realized I was supposed to say something. He snorted again, louder this time, and rolled his eyes. Annis's eyes grew still wider.
"Do you not believe it?"
she said.
"Do you not believe it?"
she said, her voice a sing-song. The tailor's eyes narrowed, and he paused before answering.
"The intrigues of palace life are far above my station,"
he said slowly.
"Keep your head from the clouds, lest it be removed, or so they say. Yet I have my doubts."
A thought struck Lauren all at once.
"And what of those others?"
she said.
"They say Wojin has the support of some foreigners recently arrived here at the capital. I heard the family name, but it escapes me. Yamin? Yavin?"
The tailor went still.
"Yerrin? The family Yerrin?"
Lauren snapped her fingers.
"That was it, Yerrin. Did they not arrive here only just ahead of King Jun's death?" "I had not heard that."
The tailor pursed his lips.
I wonder...
Over the tailor's shoulder, Annis gave Lauren a small smile, but she also shook her head. Lauren shrugged and turned to look out the shop's window.
"I do not mean to suggest anything untoward, of course. I am a stranger to this city, after all. I only repeat what I have heard."
The tailor went silent after that, and Annis deftly turned the conversation to talk of lighter matters. But after they left the tailor's shop, she fixed Lauren and Jem with a look.
"That was most telling,"
she said.
"If the first shopkeeper we met was willing to whisper of such rumors, that means many in the city must secretly believe them. And what a stroke of genius, Lauren, to plant the idea of my family's involvement. Dorshans are not fond of foreigners meddling with their kingdom. Word will spread, and when it returns to us, we may learn something of my family's plans." "Indeed,"
said Jem quickly.
I had thought of doing the same thing, of course, but you beat me to it. Of course you did, said Lauren, arching an eyebrow. But what can we do with such information? Annis shook her head. Nothing yet, but it is a start. Let us go to a few more shops and see what else we may learn. As it turned out, there was little else. They went to a cobbler, a carpenter, a steelsmith, and some other little shops of various trinkets and oddities. Yeah. Woof. All right, fanfictioneer, thanks for dropping by. I really need to refresh my coffee. I'm going to do that real fast. Coffee. All right. Most of the owners seemed to hold a similar opinion to the tailor, but none expressed it so plainly. Lauren wondered if that might be because they did not spend their coins so freely at the other shops, but she did not encourage Annis to spend more. The girl The girl clearly knew what she was doing. A few hours before sundown, they made their way back to their inn. Uzo and Chet sat in the common room, and both had clearly had a few cups of wine. Chet's nose and cheeks were ruddy, and when Lauren asked Uzo how they had fared, the mystic blinked 3 times before answering. "We did well enough," he said slowly. He leaned closer and dropped his voice. "Certainly there is some disagreement in the city about Wojan taking the throne. No one was willing to speak very plainly, but there was much to be read in their quiet words and sidelong glances. It seems King Jun is greatly missed." "It was much the same with us," said Lauren. "That is good for our purposes, I think. If we faced a happy populace with great love for their new liege lord, I think it would be harder to seek information about the Yerrins." I find myself ever more curious about the Senate, said Annis. If the kingdom does not support King Wojan, the Senate may be persuaded to take action against him. Hopefully Wile's contacts will know something of that. I am interested to hear what he has to say when he returns. Lauren nodded, and then she noticed Jem sitting very still, his eyes darting furtively over her shoulder. She barely stopped herself from following his gaze. "Jem?" she said quietly. "What is it?" He frowned. "Mayup, it is nothing." Oh shit, we need Carrie's voice. Oh no. Oh, this is about to be real fucking important. What does Carrie sound like? Well, let's get there first. "Mayup, it is nothing. Only there is a girl over there. No, do not turn and look, any of you. She seems very interested in us. I have caught her looking at our table often." Lauren's stomach lurched. What if it was some spy of Damaris's? That seemed impossible. The merchant could not have heard about their presence in Danfon so soon. Yet Lauren had learned long ago that the Yerrins could not be underestimated. "I will fetch us some wine," she said. The others nodded. Lauren stood and made her way towards the bar. As she did, she stole a surreptitious glance at the girl. She wore the simple garb of a Dortian peasant, loose pantaloons and a tunic that gathered at the wrists. She wore a wide-brimmed hat like many in the city, and her hair was black, as was common here. Yet her features were a bit softer than a typical Dortian's, and her freckles were unusual in this kingdom. The girl did not look up. Indeed, she studiously turned her gaze away, but Lauren sensed a tension in her. Lauren bought a bottle of wine and returned to the table. "She does not look dangerous, at least," she said quietly. "If she is a spy, what then?" "We should capture her," said Annis. "She may be able to help us find my mother, if indeed that is who sent her." "Agreed," said Lauren. She gave Uzo a quick look. "But we must be careful. We need her alive." Uzo rolled his eyes and nodded. "Very well," said Lauren. "Everyone come with me." She rose, leaving her cup and the wine. Quickly she went towards the inn's front door, and the rest hastened to follow. Oh boy, my voice. Quickly she went towards the inn's front door, and the rest hastened to follow. Just before stepping outside, Lauren saw the... Just before stepping outside, Lauren saw the girl shoot up from her table. Lauren darted to the corner of the inn and directed the others to file around the side of the building. She went last, waiting until the girl started to emerge through the front door. She timed it so that the last flap of her cloak was just visible as the girl stepped outside. Quickly she directed the others to hide in the alley's dark corners. She herself stood behind a stack of crates. Soft footsteps sounded from the street. Lauren drew a throwing knife from her belt. The girl snapped... The girl stepped into view. Lauren threw the dagger but aimed wide. The blade plunged into the wall near the girl's face, making her jump. Uzo pounced, snatching her arm and clapping a hand over her mouth. Lauren stepped up beside him and slowly tugged her dagger free to sheath it. "Hello," she said amiably. "You seem most interested in our little party. Why? The girl only stared at them with wide, terrified eyes. Uzo withdrew his hand slowly, ready to replace it if she tried to scream, but the girl made no sound at all. Lauren sighed. "How long have you been following us?" That made the girl glance at Uzo and Chet. Okay, here we go. "I was not following you." "I was not following you." No. I was not. Oh, crap. What does she sound like? She's frank, she's no nonsense. I was not following you. I was following them. I heard them asking questions about Wojin. Who? I am Caridwen, of the family Ogun. Why are you in Danfon? Are you here to help the king? Wojin is not the true king. You serve the High King. I hoped, but I could scarcely believe. I was not following you. I was following them. I heard them asking questions about Wojin. Who? I am Caridwen, of the family Ogun. Why are you in Danfon? Are you here to help the king? Wojin is not the true king. You serve the High King. I hoped, but I could scarcely believe. King Jun was not killed. He is still alive, and if you truly serve the High King, I will take you to him. All right. We'll export this so that we've got it on hand for reference. All right. I was not following you. I was following them. Fair enough, said Lauren. Why? I heard them asking questions about Wojin. Wojin. Not Wojin. I heard them asking questions about Wojin. And do you work for him? Said Lauren. Or do you work for the family Yerrin? The girl's brow furrowed. Who? Lauren glanced at Annis. The reaction seemed genuine. Mayhap the girl was a skilled liar, but Lauren did not think so. Annis gave a barely perceptible shake of her head. What is your name? Said Lauren. The girl's voice faltered. She drew herself up straighter. She had some spirit then, and not just a pretty face. I am Caradwen, of the family Ogun. Why are you in Danfon? Lauren cocked her head, unable to keep herself from a small smile. That is a proud question to ask ones who hold you captive. Caradwen blushed, but she did not relent. Are you here to help the king? We do not know Wojin. Caradwen shook her head quickly. Wojin is not the true king. Annis stepped forwards. Yet he sits upon the throne, for King Jun is dead. The girl's eyes widened and darted around nervously. Sky above, thought Lauren. She gently pushed Uzo aside. He moved, if somewhat reluctantly, and Lauren stepped within a pace of Caradwen. From her cloak pocket she pulled her writ from the High King. Can you read? Caradwen... Caradwen stared for a moment before nodding slowly. Lauren handed her the writ. Caradwen opened it and read it. Lauren saw the color drain from her face and then come rushing back in a flush. You serve the High King, she said. I hoped, but I could scarcely believe. And now I ask again, said Lauren. Why did you follow my friends? Caradwen seemed to steel herself, and she drew up even straighter than before. King Jun was not killed, she said. He is still alive, and if you truly serve the High King, I will take you to him.
Oh, boy. All right. Yeah, my voice is having a bad time. Having a bad time. Oh. Yeah, I really think this is a COVID thing. I used to be able to do 4 or 5 hours in a booth easy. And ever since COVID, my endurance has just been shot all to hell. Whew.
Chapter 18. I woke the next morning with a mission, one not given to me by two. Quickly I broke my fast by the campfire nearest my squadron's tents. Then I headed towards the west end of the camp, where Coon and his mystics slept. A few curious eyes followed me as I walked past, but I ignored them. Most of the time, if you act as though you are supposed to be wherever you are, few will question you. Such was the case then, for no mystics came to ask me what I was doing. At the westernmost end of the camp, I saw the signs Coon had found. A wide trail had been tramped into the ground. It intersected with our path from the north, and there it turned west and headed in the same direction as our march. I gathered all the information that I could. Their number seemed to be around 200s, which was less than half of our force. That was close to Yue's best guess at their numbers. I saw no hoof prints at all, which was a heartening sign. If they had been a mounted party, we could not have hoped to catch them. It seemed to me that they had been here only a day ago, but I could not be entirely sure, nor could I tell anything else. Coon and his mystics had already wandered about the place, disturbing many of the signs. I turned and headed back towards my part of the camp with the same air of indifference as when I had come. Once again, no one hailed or challenged me. When I reached our row of tents, I saw that Mag was already up and breaking her fast by the fire. She greeted me with a lazy wave. I sat by her and pulled out a packet of dried meat. I had already eaten, but no seasoned soldier refuses a second helping. "Good morn," I told her. "I've been busy already."
"So I gather," she said. "Looking into the signs of the shades?"
"Just so. We are only a day behind them, I think, and they are marching west on the same path as us." Mag frowned.
"West? I still do not understand it. This is not the quickest way to reach any city of import. If they mean to make trouble in Feldamar, they would do better to go north, and if in Dorsey, then to the south."
I shrugged. Mayhap they mean to practice some smaller mischief, as in Lan Shui.
"What is that about Lan Shui?"
came a sleepy, grumbly voice. Yue hauled herself out of my tent. Her short yellow hair stuck out in all directions, black in the roots after so long without dye.
"Morning, Erica."
"Do not tell me we are heading back home after I spent so long riding away from it. I might just throw a fit."
"I do not think so," I said, chuckling. She came to sit beside me. I brushed a hand lightly up her back, and she stole some food from my pouch. Mag, meanwhile, did not look convinced by my idea.
"I doubt they're doing anything like the ritual that summoned the vampires. Why would they need so many soldiers? The shades in Lan Shui numbered less than a dozen."
"A fair point," I said. Then I arched my brows. Though mayhap Yue struck closer to the truth. What if their destination is not on this side of the Great Rocks? They may be making for the Sunmane Pass, there to cross the Great Rocks and pursue some mischief in western Dorsey. Mag's eyes widened.
"No, they do not mean to cross the pass. They mean to occupy it."
Yue frowned.
"Occupy it?"
But I understood Mag at once. Of course, there are only two passes through the Great Rocks. If the Shades could occupy one of them, they would cut the kingdom's trade and travel in half.
"Why only in half?"
said Mag, her expression going dark.
"I would wager that another force makes for the Moon's Light Pass in the south. They will cut Dorsey in two."
Yue and I looked at each other and then at Mag. "We have to tell Coon," I said. Mag snorted.
"Would he even listen to us?"
"He could hardly ignore you,"
said Yue.
"You might be surprised,"
said Mag.
"He has suspected us from the start. We only march in the vanguard so he can keep an eye on us."
"But this could devastate the kingdom,"
said Yue.
"What do you mean to do about it, if not tell the captain?"
"She is right," I told Mag. "We have to try at least. Mayhap if we present a plan of action along with our guess, we may be able to convince him." Mag's eyes flashed.
"Do you think we could get our hands on a map?"
"I have one,"
said Yue, to our surprise. It is nothing fit for kings, but I brought it for my journey when I was trying to determine where you fools might have gone. Yue, you are a gift, said Mag. Please, fetch it at once. Soon we had it laid on the ground near the fire. Mag took a piece of charcoal to draw on it, and her brow furrowed as she studied it. She circled a spot. 25 leagues west of our position, there was a narrow pass between a wood to the south and a cluster of hills to the north. This place, she said. It is the northern edge of the green frost. We march right for it, and so do the shades. It would be a perfect place to attack them. But Kuhn's army has no hope of catching them before they reach it, not unless we send a smaller force to ambush them, to delay their march until the rest of the army can catch up. It will be a hard trek even so, I said. But with us guiding Two's company, we could get there in time. Then let us bring this to the lieutenant at once, said Yue, before Kuhn begins the day's march. We found Two with little trouble. He was finishing his morning meal, and he arched an eyebrow at us as we approached. Good day, he said. What is it? You look as though something important has happened. Not yet, said Mag. As quickly as we could, we outlined our plan. Two listened attentively, curling his fingers through his goatee and frowning. The Sunmane Pass, he said. I admit it makes more sense than anything else we have guessed at. But they would have a hard time holding it with no place of strength to defend. A chill went through me. They may have a stronghold in the peaks, I said. Two met my gaze nonplussed. Oh? I know of no such places in those mountains. How could they keep it hidden? My throat went dry. I have seen something similar before. In the mountains west of Northwood. It is where I first saw shades, though I did not know who they were at the time. Shades, though I did not know who they not know.
Oh, ugly.
It is where I first saw shades, though I did not know who they were at the time. I was afraid Two might have heard something of that stronghold and know that there was more to my tale. But to my immense relief, he only nodded. Well then, I think you are right. This must be brought before the captain. His expression soured. Though I wonder if I should bring it to him myself. He is not overly fond of the two of you. An understatement if ever there was one, said Mag lightly. But you will need Albert and me to guide the company if we have any hope of catching the shades in time. Two tilted his head. You know the area well? She is Dortian, I told him, and grew up not far from here, and I was trained as a ranger in Calenton. Though I do not know this land well, I can guide a force through any wilderness if I know where I am going. Mag's mouth opened and then clamped tight again. I hoped I had not overstepped, saying more than she had wished, but she did not look angry, only conflicted. All right, said Two. The troops have risen and most will soon be ready to march. We must speak to the captain at once. Come. Sir, said Mag, Yue, and I together. We followed him through the camp to Kuhn's tent. A small table had been set up, and Kuhn was enjoying a meal upon it. Upon another, smaller table beside him, he read reports and letters. As he noticed our approach, he looked up, gave us a beaming smile, and wiped a bit of grease from the corner of his mouth. Lieutenant Shi, he said. His eyes roved across the rest of us. And your sergeants. To what do I owe such a pleasure? And your sergeants. To what do I owe such a pleasure? Two drew up smartly and gave a salute. Captain, Mag and Alburn have shared some thoughts with me this morning, and I thought it best to bring them to your attention. Indeed, said Coon. I am sure I cannot wait to hear what is going on in their inimitable minds. He stood and motioned to one of his attendants, who began to clean the remainder of his meal. Let us speak in my tent. We followed him inside. Like those of most military commanders, his tent was a grander thing than the 1- and 2-person tents of the rest of the camp. He had a space in the middle for a desk, upon which had been laid a map of Dorsey, larger and more detailed than Niue's. Now then, said Coon, I imagine this has something to do with whatever Sergeant Telfer was poking his nose into this morning?
Quick bathroom.
So someone had reported my investigation to the captain after all. I tried not to look like a guilty child who had been caught stealing an extra slice of apple tart. Yet, an extra slice. An extra slice of apple tart. Yes, Captain, I said. I was curious about the shades and what said Coon. But skilled at woodcraft, so I thought I might be able to been caught stealing an extra slice of apple tart. Yes, Captain, I said. I was curious about the shades and what their aims might be, and I'm somewhat skilled at woodcraft, so I thought I might be able to glean some information. Lieutenant Zhou is also quite capable in such matters, said Coon. Tell me, do you think you discovered anything he did not? I'm certain he saw everything I did, Captain, I said. Yet Mag and I might have been able to guess more from the information. Mag stepped in. Sir, we believe the Shades are making for the Sunmane Pass. If they can prevent travel through it, and if an equal force can do the same in the Moonslight Pass to the south, they will deal a devastating blow to Dorsey. It will help Wojin hold the throne, and even if he were usurped, Dorsey will be utterly unable to aid the High King against Dulmoon. Coon's brows shot for the tent ceiling. That is quite an assumption. Do you know something of the Shade's intentions? The meaning behind the question was obvious. Coon rarely missed an opportunity to needle us with the possibility that we were on the side of the enemy. I ignored it, and as Tu rolled out Yue's smaller map atop the larger one, I pointed to the marks we had made with charcoal. It may be an assumption, Captain, but I believe it is a good one, I said. Mag was the first to think something was wrong. She was born and raised in Dorsey, and it bothered her when she saw the direction of the Shade's march. They are headed due west, yet there is nothing valuable between here and the Great Rocks, nothing except the pass itself. And 200s is more than enough to hold the pass and keep anyone from using it, said Tu. At least we think so, if the Shades have a stronghold in the Great Rocks. I blanched as Coon gave him a sharp look. A stronghold? And what makes you think they have one? Tu paused, turning to look at me. Well, I took a deep breath. Captain Zhu, what do you know of Jordell of the family Adair? A long moment of silence stretched as he studied me. Tu now seemed uncomfortable, as though he regretted bringing us here. Mag's gaze remained locked on me, studying my face. I suspected she worried for me. After all, she was one of the few who knew all the details of my time with Jordell. More details than I would share now, certainly. But I was also keenly aware of Yue's gaze upon me. It was only a few days since we had spoken of Jordell, though I had not named him then. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and pity. At last, Coon spoke slowly. I did not know Jordell, but I have heard much of him. Especially since Northwood fell, if I am not mistaken, I said. Coon's smile sharpened, and he lifted his chin. What makes you say that? Because I was with him in the Great Rocks, I said. I fought by his side when we discovered the Shades there, and I laid his cairn when he fell, and I wept at his grave. The air in the tent was thick enough to cut with a knife. Coon did not so much as blink, and I could read nothing in his smile. He said. Another moment passed, and then his smile softened. Well, this is all interesting information that I certainly wish I had had earlier. I wonder if I can believe it. Though if you were trying to trick me, I hardly think you would admit involvement in the death of the last mystic captain you knew. For weeks now I had kept my temper through such remarks. Kuhn never stopped prodding us, trying to get a reaction. And I understood why, and I forgave him for it. But now I felt my blood rush in my ears, creating a whine at the very edge of my hearing, and a terrible rage thundered in my chest. "Captain," I said, my voice louder than it should have been, "I will not stand idle while you speak that way. You have your jibes at Mag's and my expense. We hear them beneath your courtesy, and we know you know it. But you will keep your needling words far from the subject of Jordell." Two's eyes were wide, and he looked as though he wanted to do something but did not know what. Meanwhile, Kuhn's smile had again grown sharp and icy. "Oh, I will. Or what? What will you do if I do not comply?" "There is no or," I said. "Alburn," said Mag, gently but firmly. "No," I barked, cutting her off. Her brows lifted, but I ignored her and turned back to Kuhn. "There is no or. You will stop because you are a man of honor, and respecting Jordell's memory is the honorable thing to do. If I were a shade in disguise intent on your ruin, it would still be right. If I were an assassin with designs on the High King herself, it would still be right. You will not speak ill of the dead or of—" My voice caught, but I forced myself to go on. "Or of one who loved him. You will hold your tongue, not for fear of anything I might do, but because it is right, and because you are worthy of such restraint." Everything lapsed into silence again. Two still looked ready to spring into action the instant he felt sure of what action to take. My limbs shook as anger and anxiety coursed through me together. I was prepared to fight, to flee, or to break and weep on the ground, and I could not have told you which I wanted to do most. But Kuhn did not look angry. His smile had not gone, but it had eased. "At last, some honesty," he said quietly. I frowned. "Sir?" He dropped his gaze to the map and leaned over the table on clenched fists. "The two of you wrap yourselves in lies. You have since the moment I laid eyes on you. Nothing you have said to me has come without some cloak of falsehood, or a shawl of deceit at the very least. And that is fine. I do not need unshrouded honesty from everyone who serves me, but it makes me suspicious, as is my right." He looked back up at me again, studying me close from beneath his thick black brows. "Yet now I hear you speak with truth ringing from every part of you, your tongue, your eyes, and your heart. It is refreshing." There was a long pause while I took this in. "Thank you, Captain," I said at last. "So you believe me?" "I do," said Kuhn, smiling. "And your sharing of truth deserves the same in turn. I had not meant to tell you this yet, but now I wish to inform you of something Lieutenant Zhen learned in Quan Shu." Lieutenant Zhen straightened suddenly, his eyes widening. "Sir," Kuhn waved him to silence with one hand. "Zhen, please. They deserve as much now that they have laid their hearts bare, as it were." He turned his gaze to us. "Wojin has been deposed." "What?" said Mag, Yue, and I at the same time. "Yes," said Kuhn, nodding. "Reports are murky as to how, but agents in the capital city of Danfon, led by other mystics, overthrew the pretender king. Even now he is being held captive there." "Then who sits the throne?" said Yue. Kuhn glanced at her. "His Majesty, formerly His Excellency, Senlin of the family Fei. King Jun was, it seems, killed. That much was true in what Wojin said, if nothing else was." "But this is wonderful news, sir," said His Majesty, formerly His Excellency, Senlin of the family Fey. Who sits the throne? Said Yue. Kun glanced at her. His Excellency, Senlin of the King family Jun Fey. Was, it seems, killed. It's the throne, said Yue. Kun glanced at her. His Grace, formerly His Excellency, Senlin of the family Fey. King Jun was, it seems, killed. That much was true in what Wojin said, if nothing else was. But this is wonderful news, sir, said Tu. Should we not proceed to Danfon at once to help the new king stabilize his claim? You forget yourself, Lieutenant, said Kun, though his smile remained plastered on his face. We are mystics. Our duty is not only to Dorsey, but to the High King, and through her to Underrealm itself. Tu bowed his head at once. Of course, sir. Please accept my apology. It is accepted, said Kun. And to answer your question, no. I do not think that Danfon is where we are most needed. King Senlin remains a loyal servant of the High King, and I have faith that he will consolidate his power in the capital and across the kingdom. But he will not be able to do so if the Shades succeed in cutting Dorsey in two by claiming the mountain passes. Mag's eyes were alight. So you believe us, then? Kun's smile widened. Yes, I believe you. Your guess as to the Shade's intentions is better than any of mine, and knowing the lieutenant, you came up with a plan of action before you brought this to me. What is it? Tu glanced back and forth between Mag and me, as though he could hardly believe it. But he recovered quickly, clearing his throat. Well, Captain, Sergeant Mag pointed out this area here. He indicated the spot Mag had marked earlier. A smaller, faster force could be sent ahead to circle the Shades, ambushing them in the green frost. That could hamper their march long enough for our main host to catch up with them, wiping them out before they reach the Great Rocks. Said Kun, thinking. It would be a hard march. Albert and I can serve as guides, sir, said Mag quickly. I know the area, and Albern's woodcraft is unmatched. Or, that is, I am sure it is comparable to Lieutenant Zhu's. Kun chuckled. You need not look after my nephew's honor so closely, Sergeant. Very well. I will let the two of you guide this force. Lieutenant Shi, your company will march on the route they have indicated. Yes, Captain, said Tu, giving him a bow. And I will be coming with you, finished Kun. That gave all of us pause. Tu looked surprised, but Mag looked suspicious. Your presence would be most welcome, of course, Captain, said Tu slowly. Oh, not just mine, said Kun. My entire unit. All of the mystics in our force, save those who are sergeants and lieutenants in the other companies. After all, if you intend to slow the Shade's march, you will need the strongest fighters you can get. He turned to Mag. With Lieutenant Xi's company and my unit, we shall have just over 100 of troops. Will that let you stage an ambush that can halt our foe's advance? Mag grinned. I could do it with half that, sir. Kuhn's eternal smile turned just as wolfish as her own.
Hey, Luke. Morning.
I feel like you don't play Elden Ring when I'm here anymore.
I normally don't start for another 10-15 minutes.
What the?
Ooh, chapter 18 is a long one. Holy cow.
Wait a minute. Why is the Xbox controller on? We know it's charging.
No, it's on. It's a wired controller.
Oh my god.
That's the controller I use for Elden Ring.
Yeah, I know.
And it's not for the Xbox. I bought it specially for my computer.
Guess our Xbox controllers are kinda old.
Well, no, they just don't have wires that can plug into a computer. They're Bluetooth only.
Like our controllers on the Switch.
Exactly.
Wait, is your thing listening to us talking?
Oh, I'm on stream right now.
That green bar?
No. Oh, yeah. That's the microphone in the booth.
Hello, stream. I just had a breakfast sandwich and I came up to say hi to my dad and I'm interested now.
Oh, do you want to make me a breakfast sandwich?
Wait, chapter 18? File
Wait,
not
what?
found?
Oh.
That's weird!
I'm a dingus.
Yes, you are a dingus.
Knock it off. Get out of here.
I still think you're a dingus. I'm a dingus too. Wait, does dingus mean dork?
Yeah, basically.
Yay, then we're all dinguses.
Ugh. Quick restroom while the chapter audio uploads. You're back.
Down and oh.
Lady Temeraire, that's adorable. Boof. Boof. We all know that warning boof noise.
Chapter 19. Days later, unaware that the Shade's position had been discovered, Kaita wrestled with weighty thoughts. Mag had guessed correctly. The Shades, having fulfilled their purpose on the border between Dorsey and Feldemar, now made for the Sunmain Pass. Most of the Western senators had not been loyal to Wojin, and they would wish now to support the new king as soon as they could muster the armies to do it. The Shades might not be able to prevent that from happening, but they would want to delay it as long as they could. These matters were much on Kaita's mind, but something else also troubled her thoughts. She wore no furs against the cold. It was nothing compared to Tokana, but she still had on her cloak. She never took it off these days. And as she considered the road ahead, her hand stole into the cloak, probing an inside pocket. There sat the package of brown cloth Rogan had given her. She could feel the mage stones calling to her. Sometimes she even peeled back the edges of the cloth to look at them, as though to reassure herself of their presence. They glinted back at her, dark as the pupil of a giant's eye. Wild thoughts flitted through her mind whenever she looked at the stones. Rogan had never wanted to give them to her. What if he had lied? Wild thoughts flitted through her mind whenever she looked at the stones. Rogan had never wanted to give them to her. What if he had lied? What if he had given her fakes? She should eat one, test it, just to be sure, just so that she could know. Footsteps approached her tent. Kaita snatched her hand away from the stones as the front flap opened. Tagata entered, bent double to fit. Tagata was a Shadeborn, like Rogan. 10.5 hands tall she stood, and her shoulders were as broad as 2 ordinary folk abreast. On her back she carried a massive greatsword, which was as tall as Kaita herself. But her most frightening ability was neither her strength nor the surprising speed with which she could move. It was the tattoo inked on the back of her neck, the mark of her lord's favor. That mark could banish death itself, letting her recover from even the most grievous wound in a matter of moments. She was a killer, born and bred and given a dark blessing. Yet, like Rogan, she was not always cruel or violent. As she entered Kaita's tent, her eyes held nothing but fondness and concern. And as she saw Kaita resting only in her cloak, she gave a little smile. "Are you not cold, little one?" she said. "But then, I suppose you would not be, after your days in Kalentin." Kaita felt a flash of anger at the mention of Kalentin, but it quickly subsided. She knew Tagata meant nothing by the jest, and she did not know as much of Kaita's story as Rogan did. So she smiled in response and beckoned Tagata to sit beside her. "I find the cold bracing," she said.
I ship them so hard. I mean, Is it shipping if the author... Is it shipping if I, as the author, actually get them together in the story? Like, if I take my own action figures and actually make them kiss, is that still shipping or is that just writing?
But I am not opposed to piling on a few extra furs when I have someone with whom to share them. There are few things as pleasant as sharing warmth and comfort when the world is cold and dead.
I agree with you there, said Tagata, taking the seat Kaita had offered. Their shoulders pressed together, and even through her thick cloak, Kaita could feel the warmth of Tagata's shoulder. She was like a furnace. It was something she had noticed in all the Shadeborn she had ever met, as if they burned with some inner fire that no winter could hope to douse. Kaita leaned into her, resting her head on her shoulder. Rogan had always told her to love all the Shades like her own family, but in truth, Kaita held most of them in disdain. They were like sheep, like the very people who had made her suffer early in life. She gave her trust and love only to those who deserved it, ones like Tagata and Rogan himself, ones who were useful because they were strong. But they were also very, very clever. And even as Tagata wrapped an arm around Kaita's shoulders, sharing more of her heat through the cloak, she glanced down at Kaita to give her a quick look over.
"Are you well?"
she said.
"Is there anything you wish to speak with me about? Anything that worries you?"
Kaita sighed through her nose.
"You should say what you mean. I have not taken the Mage Stones.
Yeah, fair enough, Saffrons. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Grab yourself a free book at the link I just dropped in chat. That'll get you a free copy of my book, Nightblade, the first Underrealm book. That's where it was. It is the full book, not a sample or the first chapter. But fair warning and full disclosure, it is the drug dealer model. I give you the first one for free, knowing that you're going to want to come back and buy the rest because you're going to get hooked. But you're going to enjoy yourself anyway. And it's one of the more benign things that you can be addicted to. So do it anyway and enjoy yourself. I do love, by the way, that the free... Hey, what's up, Bumblebee? Long time no see. I love I love that the way it works out when I shoot people the free link and include their username so that Twitch highlights it in their chat window. It basically amounts to a chat command of free saffrons, as though you've been wrongfully imprisoned and I'm leading a campaign to get you out.
"You should say what you mean. I have not taken the Mage Stones. I gave my word to Rogan. And yet in return, he has sent me to march with you, directly away from where I wish to go."
Tagata frowned.
"We must make for the pass. If the Western senators can muster—" "I know the reasons,"
snapped Kaita. She paused, took a breath, and forced herself back to calm.
"Of course, this host can hardly turn around and head east, but I could. I could go on the hunt for Alburn and Mag again. I have the power to end them at last."
"You must have faith," said Tagata.
"If Rogan told you this was the right thing to do, you must trust him.
he would not deceive you. I trust in him just as I trust in our father, said Kaita irritably. Yet what else am I supposed to think? The last I heard, Albert and Mag were to the east, yet he sends me to march west. Does he know where they are better than I do? If so, why does he not tell me? Why not tell me where and when I shall meet them, rather than a vague promise? He would never say it unless he believed it to be true, said Tagata. And I wish to trust in that, growled Kaita. But how can I? How can he know? Tagata hesitated. At first, Kaita thought she had no answer. But when Tagata spoke, it was almost as if the words were being forced out of her. He has methods. Kaita drew back, feeling her arm and shoulder cool as she looked up into Tagata's face. Kaita drew back.
Big old click on that D there. I chose those words. I said them out loud.
Drew back.
But I don't normally click on that sound. That's interesting.
He has methods. Kaita drew back, feeling her arm and shoulder cool as she looked up into Tagata's face. Tagata, meanwhile, did not meet her eyes, but looked studiously at the tent flap. Tagata? Said Kaita. What do you mean? Tagata licked her lips, considering. That is, I mean Rogan, but father as well. They have a sight. She paused. Kaita remained silent, waiting. She felt a curious certainty that Tagata should not be telling her this, and that she should not press the matter, for that might drive Tagata back to silence. I do not know quite how it works, said Tagata. Know quite how it works, said Tagata. Now she spoke more quickly, as though cracks in a dam were widening. But they can see things, threads of time and fate, like the future in a tapestry. No one has that power, whispered Kaita. They do, said Tagata. I do not know how it works. I do not know where they gained it. Rogan often says that we are all equal to each other, but I cannot be his equal, for this gift is beyond me. I barely know of its existence, and I know nothing of its origin. It seems to me that it is unclear some of the time, yet from what I know, it is infallible. And what do you know? Said Kaita. But Tagata shook her head. I should not have said as much as I have. I will not speak more of this. I only tell you so that you know your faith is not misplaced. If Rogan said you would achieve your aims this way, but did not explain why, then I am sure it is because he has...
Hey, sweetheart, what's up? I'm on stream. Oh, all right. Let me finish this chapter, and then I'll come grab it real quick. That'd be perfect. Thank you. Love you.
Seen it. Kaita wanted to ask one of the thousand. If Rogan said you would achieve your aims this way, but did not explain why, then I am sure it is because he has seen it. Kaita wanted to ask one of the 1,000 questions whirling in her mind. But before she could prod Tagata to speak on, they heard shouting outside the tent. Instantly they were on their feet, Kaita casting her cloaks and blankets aside. They threw themselves out of the tent just as a shade came running up to them, her eyes wide, and pointed east. "Commander," she said to Tagata, "one of the Eastern Outriders has delivered a report. There is a force following us." "What?" snapped Tagata. "How many? How close?" "That is unclear, Commander," said the messenger. "He saw the smoke of many campfires, but could not see the foe." Tagata paused for a moment, considering, but a furious excitement sparked in Kaita's heart. "It is them," she said in a whisper. "It must be." Tagata frowned at her. "If there are many campfires, it cannot only be Mag."
Buddy, thank you so much.
You know,
Oh my god.
I should really tell a joke to your stream more when I come in here.
Alright.
Okay, stream, just so you know, I'll be trying to do that, so... yeah.
If there are many campfires, it cannot only be Mag and Alburn. No, said Kaita. Not just them. They have allied with others, other servants of the High King, to pursue me. Or to pursue us, for I doubt they know I am here. You were right. Rogan was right. I should never have doubted. You can be forgiven, I think, said Tagata. She turned back to the messenger. Send word all through the camp. Muster for the march, and be ready to press hard. We must reach the great rocks before they catch us. Yes, Commander, said the messenger, and she ran off to carry Tagata's words through the camp. I should go east, said Kaita. Tagata's eyes went wide. No, Kaita, she began. You cannot... Kaita stopped her with a raised hand. Be at peace. I do not mean to fight them, but I am your only were-mage. Let me scout their position and estimate their number. When I am done, I will come straight back. Tagata did not seem entirely convinced. The giant frowned down at her. Will you promise me? Kaita gave her a small smile. Not all the shades had earned her love, but Tagata had done so long ago. I will do better than that, she said quietly. She reached into her cloak and pulled out the small packet wrapped in brown cloth. As Tagata stared in shock, Kaita placed it in her hand and folded her thick fingers around it. Keep them until I return, said Kaita. They would slow me down in my flight, and without them, you know I have no chance of striking at Mag and Alburn in the heart of their allies. Kaita, murmured Tagata. Wordlessly, Kaita stood on tiptoe and pulled Tagata's face down to kiss her on the cheek. Then she turned, and her eyes filled with mage light. An instant later... Now kiss! One day there will be a movie or a TV show. And I'm going to give the lesbians everything they want. An instant later, a raven took wing into the gray, cloudy sky. Kaita... I'm going to give everybody everything they want. Oh, my God. Oh. I was watching this really interesting YouTube video the other day, and I say interesting, and by interesting I mean slightly depressing. About how effective shipping is as a marketing tactic, but that it's more effective when you queerbait than when you just actually have representation. And it's just breaking down all these case studies. Like, nobody's done proper science on it. But when you don't actually have queer rep in the show or movie, the fandom gets all churned up about it. And they create their own content to replace what should be in the show. But then that means that they're more emotionally invested and everything like that. And I'm just like... fuck it. I'm not gonna play into that. You know what I mean? Hey, Vale. Welcome. And by Vale, I mean slightly depressant. No, I'm kidding. But, like, that sucks. And I feel like I kind of already knew that, or kind of already suspected that that was the case. And it's not something that I'm gonna, like, do or play into, but it's just like... An instant later, a raven took wing into the gray, cloudy sky. Kaita had to flap hard, for there were no updrafts to cast her sailing through the air. But she relished the burning in her wings, the feeling of blood coursing its feverish way through the tiny veins of her bird form. Her months of fleeing from Mag and me had left her exhausted, but she had had a week of easy travel with the Shades to recover. Now flying felt like a return to honest work after being too long idle. At last she spotted Kuhn's force. She studied it from high up in the air. Her best guess was that around 3,500 of troops lay below her, not counting the camp followers behind. That was almost double the size of the Shade force. Worse yet, she spotted some dozen or so red cloaks wandering among the press, mystic officers directing the militia. So, the mystics were aware of the Shade's march and were hunting them across Dorsey, and they were only half a day's march behind the Shades. At least they had no horses, other than some few officers' mounts and pack animals. Tagata and her troops should still be able to reach the Great Rocks before they were caught, though it would be a near thing. Kaita was about to swoop lower. She wanted to see if she could identify the leader of this little army. She especially wanted to catch sight of Mag and me, to confirm what she already suspected. But just before she bent her wings to dive, an arrow flew up from the host. It pierced a raven, a real raven, through the breast. The bird plummeted to the ground. "Dark take them," thought Kaita. They were shooting birds in case they were were-mages. Even as she watched, a falcon drew too close and was shot down. Well, in truth, that was all she needed to know. If this host was taking precaution against were-mages, that must mean that Mag and I were there. We would have told them about her. She could not get closer to confirm it, but she had all the proof she required. She turned and powered her wings back towards Tagata and the rest of the Shades. Of course, Two's company had left the rest of the host days ago, and Mag and I had gone with him.
No, Alburn. Three's company.
And the rest of the Shades. Of course, Two's company had left the rest of the host days ago, and Mag and I had gone with him. Under our guidance, the company had marched south for half a day before swinging west. Then we had raced along a small valley that ran south of the Greenfrost. Kuhn had directed the rest of his forces, under Zhen's command, to pursue the Shades with all possible speed and distract them. That was why Kaita only counted 3,500 of soldiers, and she reported that number to Tagata. That was why she only saw a dozen or so red cloaks. The rest were with Kuhn, who marched with Mag and me. That was why the next day Kaita only kept an eye on the force behind, and never flew ahead to scout the Greenfrost for danger. And that was why the Shades were utterly unprepared when we found them in the forest the next day.
So somebody on Twitter said, post a GIF that describes your DM style in a single GIF, your Dungeon Master style. And I just posted that GIF of the Grinch smiling, his evil smile that slowly curls his whole face up. And one of my players commented, "Accurate," and I'm so happy. Ugh. I'm honestly a little worried about how much I'm enjoying planning the next, what do you call it? The next game, the next little miniature story arc, actually. Like, I'm getting very invested in it. And it is truly the most intimately connected I've felt to any of my players through this whole campaign. But it's because of how hard I'm working to just absolutely destroy them at the table. Like, yeah. Yes. It's that feel of looking them in the eye with a loving smile and saying, like, I truly understand you. I understand you on a level that most don't. I know you to your core. And I will prove it to you. Because in that core, I have found your rawest, exposed nerve. And I am about to squeeze. That's amazing, Wordwin. Yeah, my buddy Jesse, Dungeon Master in the campaign that I play in, he does that with Sour Patch Kids. It's pretty great. Okay. Up to 10 hours. Very nice, very nice. So that's going to have to be it for me today. I do not have time for another chapter. So we're going to find somebody to raid. Who streams? Aha! You there! I hope you're... Pew, 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 pew. Oh my god! Thank you for the follow, Saffrons. I have my headphones on quite loud. That notification. That got me. Join me, won't you, in a raid on the inimitable Wordwin. Oh, boy. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. I will be back with another stream tomorrow. Will I be back tomorrow? I should be back tomorrow. There's a slight chance if I feel way too behind on D&D prep, I might take tomorrow morning for D&D prep. But... otherwise, you'll see me here. Thank you so much for the follow. Thank you for hanging out and chatting, everybody. And I will catch you next stream. Bye.
Well, everyone, welcome to VlogaNovel.